Hi, good afternoon and welcome back to the city of Haiphong. We are currently here on the Loc Tre Street, which is also near to the Loc Tre Stadium, and from here we will now walk toward the Opera House. So let us talk a bit of how this place came together, a port city which is shaped by salty air, ship horns, and centuries of endless movements. Haiphong has always been a gateway, an entrance where merchants, migrants, soldiers, and dreamers stepped onto Vietnamese soil and leaving their trace that still lingers here in these streets. I learned from a local that it is a place where until today, we still can find wide boulevards built during the French era, interesting colonial facades, and old merchant quarters which stand shoulder to shoulder with modern towers, busy markets, and the constant rhythm of the port life. Even though it is not the quietest city, but behind the noise and the humidity, the trucks and the shipyards, there is a heartbeat, a cultural identity that refuses to fade away. This is starting from its legendary cuisine to its historic opera house, and leading towards the working-class neighborhoods to the wide tree-lined avenues, facts which make Haiphong a city that certainly rewards anyone who is willing to slow down and take a closer look. And this is exactly what we will do now. So come and join me step by step, street by street, and discover the stories that make Haiphong more than just a simple port city, but also a living chapter of Vietnam's past and future, and find out the reasons why you also should visit this amazing city. This is the Haiphong Opera House, which was built between 1904 and 1912 during the French colonial era. It became the cultural heartbeat of this port city, which is shaped by ships, storms, and stubborn resilience. The city and its boulevards are especially inviting during the evening hours when it reveals the elegance of its colonial facades. The monuments, trees, fountains, flower gardens, and open squares glow under gentle lights, turning this area into a drama of quiet and cinematic frames, and in that mix of history, humidity, and evening breeze, the whole city center feels really alive in a way we only can notice after dark. Also here, at the Nguyen Van Troy Flower Garden, the whole area is wrapped in soft lights and the rustle of old trees. And now on our way back we just reached the Chan Tao Cao Dat, which is one of Haiphong's oldest railway crossings, a place where the city's industrial past still runs straight through the daily life. The two pedestrian walkover bridges here were built in the early 1900s, during the French colonial expansion of the Haiphong to Hanoi railway line, and was giving the residents a safe way to cross long before modern traffic systems existed. More than a century later, their bricks and steel frames and worn steps remain an untouched reminder of a port city that was shaped by trains, trade, and the movement of people. Now, if you are interested in coming by train from Hanoi here, there are 4 to 5 direct trains per day running, depending on the season and timetable updates, but most sources list 4 daily departures, while some updated schedules list 5 trips. The journey will take you between 2.5 to 3 hours, depending on the train, with the fastest train listed as the HP2, and coming in at 2 hours and 35 minutes.
Wow, and on tonight's menu is Domino Pizza 2 for 1. Good morning, good morning. I'm sitting here at the breakfast table and having a delicious beef noodle soup, which is in Vietnamese called pho.
And after our delicious breakfast we are now at the Cathedral of the Diocese of Haiphong, here in the district of Hong Bang. This is the central church of the Roman Catholic community here in the city and built in the early 20th century during the French colonial period. With a structure that follows a traditional Gothic layout which includes a 28-meter tall bell tower, a 47-meter nave that comes in a width of 17 meters. The interior, as we can see here, includes a vaulted ceiling, stained glass windows, and a main altar dedicated to Our Lady of the Rosary. I have been told that the church was restored in the year 2000, with its original architectural design preserved. The Diocese of Haiphong was formally established in 1960, although the Catholic activity in the region dates back to 1655. And nowadays, the diocese oversees nearly 150,000 Catholics across 98 parishes, with the cathedral functions as the administrative and ceremonial center for the diocese, hosting daily mass including Sunday services, and major other religious events. Due to its central location near to the Tambak River and the old colonial quarter, this cathedral is definitely a notable landmark to visit, if you are also interested in the historical development of Haiphong. And since we are already close to the Hong Van Thu and Quang Trung neighborhoods, this is the perfect moment to move straight into the history of Haiphong's old colonial quarter. It is in my opinion one of the most exciting areas where we can find the best traditional fresh markets, the most unique preserved architecture, and the most famous historic streets which are offering us a vivid look into this city's interesting past. So, we virtually moved from the cathedral, which is located on the Hong Van Thu Street, directly into the surrounding colonial quarter which is nestled along the Tambak River, a man-made modified canal system that is connected to the Cam River, and located here in one of the oldest and most historically concentrated areas of Haiphong. I read that this district developed rapidly after 1888, which is the year Haiphong was officially established as a city under the administration of the French. During this period, the French authorities planned the urban layout using a grid system, dividing the center into administrative, commercial, and residential zones. Many of the streets here in the Hong Van Thu and the Quang Trung neighborhoods still following this original plan. A lot of these buildings, which we can see here, were constructed between the late 19th century and the 1930s. They include row houses like we see here, then there are the government offices, trading houses, banks, and residential villas which were built in the French architectural styles such as Neoclassical, Gothic Revival, and the design of Art Deco. A lot of these structures feature arched windows, iron balconies, and thick masonry walls designed to withstand the humid climate. Although some buildings have been renovated or repurposed, their original forms remain visible and provide a clear record of the city's early development. The colonial quarter was also home to several important markets, and before the modern markets were built, this area hosted a network of old-style fresh markets that supplied food to both local residents and the growing European community. These ancient markets operated along the smaller streets branching off from the Hong Van Thu and the Quang Trung neighborhood, where vendors sold seafood, vegetables, and imported goods arriving through the port. The markets played a central role in daily life and contributed to Haiphong's reputation as a major commercial hub here in northern Vietnam. Several key buildings in this district date back to the first decades of the 20th century, like the Haiphong Opera House, which was completed in 1912, and which served as the cultural center for the colonial administration. Then there is the old Banque de l'Indochine building, constructed in the early 1900s, which reflects the financial importance of this port city, besides the many former administrative offices, including customs and postal facilities, which were also built during the same period to support the city's expanding trade network. These structures form a continuous architectural record of Haiphong's role as a strategic port city during the French colonial era. Walking through the colonial quarter and seeing the residences of the ordinary people today, we can still identify the original street names and building functions. Although the city has modernized, the layout and surviving architecture provide a clear view of how Haiphong grew from a small settlement into a major urban center. The combination of preserved buildings, active markets, and long-standing commercial streets makes this district one of the most historically significant areas in the city. For me, this part of Haiphong makes it already worthwhile to come to this city, as the remains are an important reference point for understanding these areas past. The buildings, the markets, and the street patterns definitely reflect much more than a century of development. It is actually connecting the present day of Haiphong with its origins as a colonial port and an administrative center here in the northern parts of Vietnam. And after exploring parts of the city's old quarter, let's enjoy a coffee here at the sleek cafe House of Catanat. Because here in Haiphong, the coffee isn't just brewed, it is actually lived, as every cup carries the grit of the port, the warmth of the people, and the quiet pride of a city that doesn't need to impress us anymore. The people here in Haiphong prefer their coffee bold and unapologetic. Strong and dark brews which are often made with Robusta beans through the classic Fin filter and with a splash of condensed milk. Which by the way isn't an add-on, as a matter of fact, it's part of the city's coffee identity, as it is softening the strength without dulling the character of the delicate coffee flavor. Now let us explore the continuous green belt here. It is a public park that is stretching gracefully to the east and to the west. It is a landscape shaped by history, held together by memory, and lived in by generations, and right here in the city center of Haiphong, where the national flag rises above the main square and the fountain sends its spray into the air. It is a quiet masterpiece. As to the west, the city softens into Vuan Hoa Nguyen Van Trỗi, a garden whose layout still carries the imprint of French colonial planners, with tall trees forming a canopy over stone benches, and is the beginning of the original old park corridor, a green seam that has survived the wars, the reconstruction, and the endless modernization, and leads naturally toward the neighborhood of Vuan Hoa to Hue. Then to the east, we have a shifting mood which opens into Vuan Hoa and Bien, a lively park where we can witness different groups doing their exercises during the daytime, a pattern that is shifting with the evening glows, as families and friends gathering under the mighty trees and replacing the fitness-conscious people. Here we can also find the statue of General Le Chon, who is the legendary founder of Haiphong and cast in bronze. General Le Chon was a Vietnamese female military leader from the 1st century Anno Domini, and highly revered as the founder of Haiphong and one of the most important heroines in early Vietnamese history. We now arrived at the Dai Tuong Nim Kak on Hung Liet Si Haiphong, which is the city's central place of memory and gratitude. It is the location of the Martyrs Memorial of Haiphong, which is one of the city's most solemn and symbolically important landmarks. It stands as a tribute to the sons and daughters of Haiphong who sacrificed their lives for the independence and freedom of Vietnam. And opposite we have the Na Tho Jiao Su Han Ken Church, which is one of Haiphong's most charming Catholic churches. Its Gothic-style pointed rooftops and gray facade immediately stand out, giving the impression of stepping into a small pocket of European architecture tucked inside a busy Vietnamese neighborhood. From the outside it feels almost timeless, with sharp lines, pointed arches, and a calm, dignified presence amid the movement of the Loc Tre Street. But step inside, and the scale shifts. It is small, warm, and meticulously decorated, with stained glass windows and a traditional Catholic interior that creates a serene and contemplative atmosphere. As the evening settles over Cong Vien Trung Tom Park, and the city lights begin to shimmer across the trees, we end our day here in Haiphong. In our next episode, we continue our path southward to the historic city of Ton Hoa. Until then, from my dinner table here in the heart of Haiphong, I wish you a peaceful night and look forward to having you with me on my next journey southwards.